Welcome to another episode of Man Without Fear Mondays, provided by the Daredevil's biggest fans of Nerd Initiative. Before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss all the exciting things that we have coming out very, very soon. For this week's episode, my partner in crime, Matt, is actually living his best life at MegaCon, so I am joined by none other than the amazing Shawn and Chris to discuss Daredevil Yellow. Daredevil Yellow is written by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, with art by Richard Starkings, Wes Abbott, and Matt Hollingsworth. So, welcome back to the show, Shawn, and welcome, Chris.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
We are doing well. Shawn, is your turn to say hello.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
So, we were supposed to do Daredevil Yellow last week, but you had a very busy week, Chris, and you could not get on with us, so we pushed it this week, and I'm very excited to hear all your thoughts, because apparently Daredevil Yellow is your favorite run of Daredevil.
It is definitely my favorite run of Daredevil. Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb are my favorite artists and writers. I've read all of their stuff, but of all of the Daredevil, anything that's existed, Daredevil Yellow is by far my favorite. I love the way that they tell the story with each of the different colored books, just taking something that exists and, adding layers to it and making it thicker and, more emotional. I love their style. The art is like the best too.
Oh my God, they did not miss. Shawn, what do you think about Daredevil Yellow?
I love Daredevil Yellow. I think it's definitely one of my top 5 Daredevil story arcs. I won't say top 3 simply because there's a lot of like backstory, like the origin story that's told in Daredevil Yellow that I love, but I think there's other arcs that tell it a little bit better that I like. But other than that, yeah, I think it's definitely top 5. I would say probably 4. The only thing I think that beats it out of the top 3 is Devil and Cell Block D. But other than that, it's great. I love the art. Chris and I were talking earlier, I like this pair. I like the colored books they do. I was telling Chris earlier that Spider-Man Blue is one of the arcs that I recommend for people trying to get into Spider-Man, because I think it's a great story for Spider-Man.
I do the same. Anybody getting into comic books, I always give them Spider-Man Blue first because they're familiar with the characters, and it's a retelling of some of the most famous stories within Spider-Man. So it's a good starting off place. You get that emotional attachment, and the way they tell the story is really compelling too. I like that in Daredevil Yellow, it's done in letters. In Spider-Man Blue, he's recording his voice. And it's unique. It adds layers and it thickens up the plot, if you will.
It definitely does add layers, and I do agree with what you said. It was very, very emotional because the whole story is Matt writing kind of a love letter somewhat to Karen, who has passed away, and this was Foggy's idea to help him get through that trauma. And of course, it's going to be emotional, especially when issue 1, we see Matt replaying the death of his father, which we've seen so many times before, but something about the way they did it in this was like, okay, so you're writing to your dead girlfriend about your dead dad, and it's like therapy feels like a lot less work here, but that's okay. What did you guys think?
It's definitely unique, and it shows the importance of those two people to him and how they shaped who he would become, right? The whole story arc is really just adding more depth to the Daredevil character, right? It goes from yellow suit to red suit, but it also covers like the first 3 or 4 issues, right? The first issue is the appearance of Daredevil, him becoming Daredevil. Issue 2 is the Owl. Issue 4 is the first appearance of Purple Man. So it kind of like goes through those first few books, and it adds depth to his relationship with Karen, what she means to him, how she helped develop who Daredevil became, red being his suit because it's her favorite color, and just his approach to humanity, his approach to being a hero, his approach to just being human through his father. And it's kind of how that arc builds who Daredevil becomes to all of us, really.
And I think one of the things that's great about Daredevil Yellow is, like I mentioned when we first started talking about it, there's a lot of different ways that Daredevil's origin story is told through various arcs. But I don't think any of them, if we're looking at like Man Without Fear or any of those other stories, I don't think there's anyone more than Yellow where Matt looks as critically at his father as he does in Daredevil Yellow. Because there's a section in the first issue where he's talking about his dad getting involved with the Fixer and things like that. And he goes as far as to say, you know, I something like, I'm wondering which one of us is more blind, because dad is kind of looking the other way and, you know, has to know what's going on, that he's not winning these fights at 40 something years old because he's a great boxer and he's in his prime. But Matt openly questions, and there's a lot of like, he still very clearly loves his dad, but in a lot of the other origin stories we get for Daredevil, it's very rose colored glasses. And I feel like one of the great things about the Yellow Daredevil arc is that we kind of see him look a little bit more critically at his dad. He still loves him, but it's a little bit more of, how did you not know this was going on? You had to know this was going on type stuff than we get in other origin stories.
It's almost like disappointment, and like it's the whole thing is therapy, right? That is his level of therapy. He's coming to terms with his dad. He's coming to terms with the death of Karen. And so and you mentioned the art and like the way that they color throughout the book, and that's indicative across all of these. Spider-Man blue has got tints of blue, and just the way that Sale approaches his art, but they also how he kind of frames things as well. The artwork tells as much of the story as the the panel art, and not art, but like the lettering does, right? You can see just as much emotion in the art. There's a when he's standing in a doorway, I think it's right before the Fixer. There it is. That's that panel. That panel right there when he's talking to Slade is just beautiful, right? It's almost like it's his brain. That's that memory, and it's highlighted in him, and just the artwork is second to none. It's such good work.
There's another panel, Chris, that's really awesome that happens. I actually put it in my notes as I was preparing for this, in issue 3, where we get like a close up of Slade's mouth, and it's genuinely terrifying because like the way that his teeth and all that are drawn is just very vicious and visceral looking compared to like a normal human being mouth. And I was like, man, like that's all you need in that panel. You didn't need words, you didn't need effects, you didn't need anything. It was literally just reminding you that while this dude is pretty much not a threat anymore, he is still terrifying.
Yeah, and Sale does really, 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 really well with villains. Sale and Loeb also did Batman Dark Victory. They did Haunted Night. They did Long Halloween. And like the thing about the teeth and the way they use teeth, look at the Joker's teeth in Long Halloween. They're long. It's kind of like comic-y, right? And again, going back to that idea that the art tells the story, like you're supposed to be afraid of him. Just clever. Just very clever work.
It is, and they do put. You can tell that they're matching the tones of the different emotions throughout the arc so perfectly clear, because we do see him go through so many, like you said, disappointment with his father, which I do think it's from him looking back and explaining the situation to Karen is when it shows his disappointment, when other times we see him living through it or giving a brief update of what happened to his dad. This one, we see him living through it, but also besides his dad, there's also some interesting feelings towards Foggy in this one too. Because Foggy, my man, he meets Karen one day and the next day he's like, I'm going to propose. it's like,
Yeah.
Slow down.
That's what you showed that panel earlier, the panel where Foggy kind of gives up those 3 panels together. And my thought reading that is like, I think the intent is for me to feel bad for Foggy, but I don't. Like, yeah, I don't feel bad for him. Like, you just met this woman. There's a time before we get to this series of panels where Karen has made it clear she doesn't have a boyfriend. And then you're like sad because she obviously wants someone else. But we also go forward and you get a way for Matt to kind of salvage that friendship without hurting Foggy by, basically coming on to Karen as Daredevil. And so she basically bypasses Matt and Foggy for Daredevil. But yeah, I like the retrospective. I like that him talking to Karen helps him look at his father more critically. In issue 1, I was looking at Dad very critically when I got to the panels where I thought he was about to put ketchup on steak. I was looking at battling Jack a little critically, and then of course you get the hilarious swinging the ketchup and getting it on the lady and all of that. But
Just brain
there was some
damage
really
from
good
fighting.
stuff that I liked seeing. I liked seeing that Matt was valedictorian. I thought that was really good. And then there's a part in issue 1 where he starts referencing some of these other heroes. He talks about Fantastic Four and talks about Spider-Man and just kind of talks about how they're not really interested in his problems with his dad dying. And I think that just adds another dimension because we all, especially as a lot of like MCU fans have come to comic books, right? We've had a lot of the, well, why don't we see so-and-so? What are they doing? And I think Daredevil Yellow, when we have Matt having those conversations, goes really far to reinforce that it's still a very big city. And the threat levels that somebody like a Spider-Man or Fantastic Four versus the street level threats that Daredevil are dealing with, while they're in the same city, those are two drastically different things. And so I liked having that reminder. And I think that's even if you're not a Daredevil fan, getting that throughout this arc is a good reminder of why we don't always see, like with Born Again season 2 coming, why we might not see Spider-Man, because there are two very different types of crime essentially that they're dealing with.
They always did that in the comic books too. Like the street level fighters were much different than, like, Daredevil is not going to go into space and fight people. Like, that's Fantastic Four. And so breaking it down to the street level and the villains and such, it works. And I'm glad they made that differentiation as well. I liked that piece of it. To go back to Foggy for just a half a second, my guy is an HR nightmare. That is your employee, bro. Like, for real. You can't be like, what were you thinking? You can only feel so bad for him. Like, I know, like, now we're looking back on it into 2026 world back in, it was written in 2001 based off of a comic from 1964. My guy, though, I'm sorry. Can't do that.
I feel like I would feel bad for Foggy if I hadn't seen the rest of him and Matt's friendships in the other comics where he finds out he's Daredevil and Matt puts him through it, having to make him deal with Daredevil issues as well. And this one, I'm just like, come on, man, you're coming off really cringy.
Yeah.
You just hired her. Let her do her job. Let her call you Mr. Nelson. You don't need to invite her to the bar. Just keep it professional. And he wants to hear none of that. None of that at all.
Not even just that, like, you didn't just take her out. Your idea of taking her out was to a skeezy college bar. Like, you didn't even take her somewhere nice, man. She said, take me somewhere where they cook food in front of you. And you said, Waffle House it is. Like,
Waffle House it is. Listen, Waffle House is fine dining. It is an elite establishment.
And comes with a show every time.
Right? Listen, where else can you watch somebody smoke a cigarette while they cook your eggs?
Yeah. Or beat down someone. I mean, I always like that. I think that's fun. It has charm.
It is. It's just a little, it's class.
It is. So where was I going with that? So we saw the death of his father. We also saw when he goes after the person who killed his father and was responsible for killing him, which we're all very, very aware that Daredevil never killed that man, but he did kind of cause the heart attack. Yeah. But his hands are clean. So
I also liked the setup for that in issue 1. I don't know if it's the exact last panel. I don't remember that specifically, but I know near the end of issue 1, there's the section where they write Matt saying as he's getting ready to become Daredevil, that the law is not always the same as justice. And I really like that distinction about him saying, I still believe in the law, but it's kind of why I like Chip Zdarsky's run on Captain America right now. Captain America doesn't feel like a Boy Scout anymore. He still feels like a hero, still feels as important as ever, but he's not like everything's red, white, and sunshine. Like, he's more realistic and grounded. And that, for me, is kind of that moment of Matt saying, like, I'm going to have to do some stuff that might not be on the up and up, but there's a difference between the law and justice. And I love where he's chasing after was it the fixer in the subway, and it goes as far as to describe that Matt can tell he urinated on himself, like he's so scared he's peed his pants while he's running.
Yeah, that's and again, his hands are clean, right? Like that
Yeah.
dude died of natural causes. Who's to say he wasn't, chasing him down to try to give him something he dropped? That's the way I read it.
No,
Look, I didn't even see him there. I just saw
hey,
him show up when there was a dead body.
Matt's 3 for 3 on hearing people's last heartbeat. So
There you go.
Dad gum. So issue
Aaron Jack
3.
and old fixer.
True. Well, issue 3, we see our lawyer boy at work. That's when the Fantastic Four seek out Matt Murdock's lawyering help. We get to meet Karen a little bit more. It's a pretty packed issue. I'd say it's a lot more packed than the others, but we get to see the gang coming to him for some help. And the Thing has no decorum whatsoever.
No
Zero.
chill.
No chill.
No chill.
Did not knock.
Right. Sure, there's a door. This looks quicker. That's what
This
that
looks
is.
way faster.
But
Honestly, Jude, I feel like Sailor just threw them in there so he could, paint and draw the Fantastic Four, which I'm completely cool with because I don't remember, I could be completely off. I don't remember them being in the story that early. And Marvel has a habit of when they want to sell a book, putting the most popular people in whatever book they're trying to sell. That's why Spider-Man was everything in the 70s. But like that, it just felt like he really wanted to draw the Fantastic Four. I'm glad he got the chance to draw the Fantastic Four because like they don't, I mean, like they just kind of they mentioned them like, hey, we work for them now. But also at the same time, like that doesn't add to the story. If that wasn't in there, we wouldn't need it. But we got that panel, and that panel was one of the best drawings in any of the Tim Sale, Jeff Loeb work, period.
even before that, we got the panel of Ben busting through the window.
Yep.
It was just awesome to see. Although I disagree with Sue. There are a lot of lawyers that are shysters. Sorry, Sue.
There are
on this one.
a lot of ambulance chasers.
Yeah. But I love the idea of them, and I might be wrong, but this is obviously we've had other references, but this is the most direct reference to that I can remember of Matt being the lawyer for superheroes, right? And having some of these direct references to him being put on retainer for the Fantastic Four, and Reed having him draw up an agreement, and hey, include in your retainer the cost of fixing that wall and window, and I thought that was great. I thought it was great. I loved that in this issue, Matt shows a little bit of a sense of humor. Like we get kind of teased with it where he's in the bar and he starts making Helen Keller jokes himself.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Come
Yeah.
to find out, he just wrecked these dudes because he doesn't like people who tell Helen Keller jokes, even though he was kind of telling them to go along and feel a part of it. So
I think it was more than feeling part of it, but more like, I've heard that before many
Yeah.
times. You think you're the first one? And it
Yeah.
was kind of like, I don't think he was joining in, but he was more belittling and demeaning, like, you are not funny and you
Yeah.
suck at pool.
trying to cut
Yeah.
their legs out from under them before they
Yeah.
can.
Yeah,
Self-deprecating.
taking the bullying to the bully. Like you can say whatever you want. Like I've heard it all before. It's not funny then, isn't funny now, but I'm still gonna make you look foolish. And I
Yeah.
love that. I love the confidence. I love the fact that not only did he handle them then, but they came back and then he just throttled them again. So not only did they lose to a guy who was blind in pool, but they also got like destroyed by a guy who is blind after they lost to a guy who was blind at pool.
Like
Even
he's
then,
not,
he cared enough. Even then, he cared enough to be like, "Hey, let's not do this out in the streets. Like,
Yeah.
let's at least go in the alley so everybody doesn't see you get beat by a blind man twice in full
Yeah.
view of everybody."
and you just
That's a
know for the
gift.
rest of their lives, they're saying that guy was not blind.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that takes us to issue 4, where we see Foggy very much in love with Karen and wants to propose, even though I don't understand where he gets the idea that Karen would ever say yes. Nothing against him at all, but she has not shown him any kind of attention, any kind of affection. She won't even call him by his first name. And he's just like, we're going to get married. This is it. It's wild to me.
Mm.
Delusions of grandeur. It
Yeah,
happens.
yeah. Maybe in that we're seeing the birth of the first incel. Who knows? But
He is he is definitely a problem.
yeah,
HR nightmare.
yeah, absolutely. HR nightmare. Like, sit down. You're going to watch these videos for the next 8 hours on your shift. Like, let's go. Step one: you do not
No,
try to date your coworker or your subordinate.
no, Mr. Nelson, you cannot propose to her because she said your name twice. Why are we here?
So
She
this
looked at me
issue
once.
so this issue ends with Karen is missing. She went on uh I guess a little mission being a secretary and she has gone missing. So that takes us into issue 5. Karen has been taken by the owl. So what are you going to do?
I I want to jump back to issue 4 real quick because there's one thing I caught in issue
Please.
4 that I really like, and it happens right at the beginning where it's kind of a almost like a treatise on the comics code, where Loeb and Seal go in and talk about, or Sale talk about, villains used to not kill people and things like that. The ones with costumes didn't hurt anybody and stuff like that. And that was kind of a little, as we were trying of transitioning towards the end of the comics code authority, that felt a little bit of a, maybe they didn't like it or didn't like it. I also liked that we get Matt, we get to see in issue 4, like before we head in issue 5, Matt kind of likes the attention he's getting as Daredevil. He's starting to enjoy it. And I love the underdog reference as well. That was really great. But yeah, getting in issue 5, man, we had that moment as he's looking for Karen, just straight aura farming on the top of the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
Like holding on to that. That was beautiful artwork. Chris was talking about that panel going to visit Slade, but that entire panel with the colors and the negative space using the Empire State Building was gorgeous as well.
Just it's a continuation of the just the beauty of Sale's artwork, and I'm going to be that guy and take us back to issue 4 because I didn't pick up on that comic code thing then, but now listening to you actually say that makes a lot of sense. Have either of you read Seduction of the Innocent?
Mm-mm.
I have read it cover to cover, and so like just knowing what I know about the Senate hearings and all the stuff around that, and then to be able to come back and poke fun at all of that years and years later, it's always been clever to me, and I missed it in this panel, but it's really funny, and it's kind of, I enjoy that it got a little bit meta there within the story.
Yeah.
But to pull it back to the Empire State Building and that panel, like there's a panel in every book that is going to be your favorite panel each time, right? Because you're going to forget it about the other one because the next one's going to be the greatest thing you've ever seen. And that Empire State Building one is just beautiful.
There was also just really outstanding SFX work in issue 5. Like, not that it's not present in all the other issues, but some of the sound effects work that happens in issue 5, it's great. You can tell it's drawn by hand, that it looks crisp, looks clean, but there's whole panels that are just swarm the entire panel with sound effects art that's beautiful.
I would agree with that. What I liked about in this issue was that, yeah, Daredevil's there to save Karen, but he is also taking into account and trying his damnedest to look really cool while he does it. Like he's trying to bend metal, he's putting the moves on her, and like she is eating this up.
Yeah.
And you'd think at this point she would be like, "Oh my god, it's Matt," because I've never I've never understood, like, he's the same height, he has the same voice, he knows your name, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
And she just takes it as
The way she
flirting.
just dismisses him knowing her name. Oh yeah, you must have heard me talking to the owl. And yeah, absolutely. And he even says, he goes as far as to say, "Oh, we've got to quit meeting like this." Right.
Yeah, why would the owl know her name?
I don't know.
The owl didn't know her name either. He never calls her by name, other than, I mean, he had been in the office, so maybe he knew her name there, but I don't remember them ever coming up. She's a secretary, and someone like the owl wouldn't have cared what her name was. It's a good point. And like some of that is really on the nose, right? Like Daredevil doesn't have Superman's glasses. How do you not know? Right?
Yep.
It is they choose not to know. She knew.
Yeah.
She knew.
I think there's also a really cool thing that happens in this issue with Grace. And if Daredevil Yellow is your first introduction to the character, it serves as foreshadowing. If it is not your first introduction, if you've already read Born Again and some of the other Daredevil runs, then it's not foreshadowing as much as it's a callback. So it has dual functions. If you're reading this as your first, it's foreshadowing. When Grace is talking about working for the Owl and he knows something about her or whatever, and she tells Karen, someday you'll have a secret and you'll see how much it's worth to you.
And
And
all it
that's
was
that
worth
kind
was
of
a hit.
foreshadowing / callback to, Karen selling Matt's identity for drugs.
That's all it was worth. Just one hit.
No.
So Karen is
That
true.
goes deeper than anything I know about Daredevil. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't know that?
Nope, nope, nope. I like a lot of the earlier Daredevil stuff, and so there's a lot of gaps. Spider-Man, I can do all day.
Yep.
Daredevil, I mean,
Yeah. So
I just
Grace
didn't get
tells
all of it.
her she's leaving. You'll have a secret. You'll see how much it's worth to you. And then in the Born Again run, Karen is like a out of work former actress, and
Wait, what kind of actress?
well,
She's
a
a
knocking boots actress.
Oh,
yeah.
But
hey,
She's a
she
porn
turns
star.
around. She's also a
that's
drug addict, and she sells Matt's identity as Daredevil for a hit, basically,
that's
and
Yeah.
that's it. And so,
terrible.
if like I said, if you've not read it, it does foreshadow Karen's downfall when she basically does something arguably worse for much less than what Grace is apparently hiding. But if you're someone who is read all of these and you've read these stories, you see Grace, and it does give you that, and at least for me, I got that instantaneous reminder of going back to Karen and, hey, Karen's asking this kind of judgmental question about Grace. And we know because we've read the stories, you're
Yeah.
going to do much worse for much less. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of a tip of the cap to Sale and Loeb and how they write as well. They do all of these nods to this just vast history of comic books that we get, and like, yeah, this covers like issue 1 through 15. I think like just around 15 because they mention the Gladiator in issue 6 about how he's taken over the gym. The Gladiator's first appearance, I think, is Daredevil 12. I may be off because I'm maybe
Matador.
somewhere in there. They mentioned the Matador, like they hit all of those beats from those first few books that really build who Daredevil is into that red suit, and it's just the history's there. It's really, 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 really rich, and
Those little
they're really
callbacks are nice.
respective of it.
Those little callbacks are nice because
They
not
are.
only does it help you as a fan, you enjoy it, but it also shows that you have an author or a writer that is respecting and put the work in to kind of know the backstory. And that's one of the things. I know this is about Daredevil Yellow, but that's one of the things that I enjoyed about Alex Segura's book he's got coming out. It's very clear he spent time with the character, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of these callbacks. You're not going to run into retcon issues where he's got to go back and fix something later, or in a different story it's got to be fixed. It's right, and it is those little callbacks. But yeah, in going back to issue 5, we end with, God, Foggy dude, like what are you doing? Like you're just I know we're
It's
supposed
just
to feel
sad.
bad for him, and maybe it's a little bit like Megan said, like we know what the friendship looks like, but at the same time, like, dude, you can't throw a ring at a lady who looked your direction. That's not a qualification.
He's
It's
the kind
not.
of guy, like, I know for a fact in this day and age, he'd be like, "Where's my hug at?" He's that guy.
Yeah, he's the "Where's my hug at" guy. That's
Yeah.
not a good guy to be. That's not a good guy to be at all. Poor Foggy. You can do better, buddy. Like, I mean, not that you can do better than Kara. That's not. It's not. It's you just need to do better.
Right?
Just
Be
do
better.
better. Yeah.
Be
Just
better.
do better. Do better. Be better. Be best.
Yep.
Well, then the final issue shows us a man who is way worse than Foggy in every way possible, the Purple Man. And Daredevil goes toe to toe with the Purple Man because the Purple Man has his clutches on Karen, and he is adamant that he is going to boink Karen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dangerous
Absolutely.
close.
it was dangerously close. Like her
Dangerously
clothes were
close.
off.
That
Yeah.
was that was even more of an HR call than Foggy was getting. That was
Yeah.
a criminal complaint coming in versus an HR complaint. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was
It's very dark.
yeah, and which is crazy because it was such a tonal shift in that issue from where we start, because we start kind of the left off of where Foggy feels down and him and Matt kind of get into it over Karen, which we see just the absolute just swagger of Matt, where he goes on to talk about like, hey, me and Foggy both know what's going on and we both know it only ends one way. And I was like, all right, like cool, like you know what you got, you know what you're doing, and you basically are acknowledging that, hey, Foggy knows if you want Karen, she's yours. So I like that. But then that's such a drastic shift from two friends kind of arguing about a woman to old dude mind controlling a girl to the point she's dropping clothes and about to assume the position and be ready to go. And then here comes Daredevil. Literally, here's Daredevil busting through the door.
Yeah.
And man, I love the Purple Man. Like, he is a bad to the bone guy. He is not a character you have to empathize with. He's not a villain you have to like see through and see, oh no, he had parent issues. No, he is just bad. And if he shows up in a comic, it's about to get weird and dark, and I love it. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what it did.
And it's just like I'm not the all knowing all Marvel historian, but I can't think of a single time that a writer has even tried to redeem Purple Man, which has happened in a lot of other villain arcs. But Purple Man has just always been, hey, here's this skeevy dude that just takes advantage of people. Always, that is his MO, and that's what he's going to be. It's not going to be anything different, and it's
They've
crazy to see.
they've given his backstory,
Yeah,
and they've like explained like why he is the way he is, but I think it's pretty accepted across the board that he's just an unforgivable son of a bitch that
Yep.
you should not be around.
Yep.
No, at all. And they
And
they
then
they made a good job, did a good job of representing him and Jessica Jones. Tennant did a fantastic job, right?
yes,
And it is hard to hate David Tennant, but it is easy to hate David Tennant as the Purple Man because he takes things away from you. Like
yep,
you have no control. And it's why he showed up in Jessica Jones and not Daredevil, because Daredevil is he just doesn't affect him, right? He's
yep,
blind, colorblind. But Jessica Jones, that whole arc is
yes.
that is such a good villain. I love a
And
good villain. Like
even the
villains that are
art
just
is
villains to
it
be
too.
villains.
Even the Purple Man art, like when Matt slams him with that cart, he's still got like the perfectly coiffed hair and everything as it's flying, and he's just it's I think that makes him even less likable, because you look at him and he's a guy who is, a conventionally attractive dude who probably could have his own share of dates and things like that without having to use his manipulation abilities, but he still does.
He's
And
Bundy.
huh?
He's Bundy.
He's Bundy, yeah.
Somebody who is attractive that uses that charisma and attraction to take advantage,
Yep.
and never for anything good, always bad.
Yep. Always bad. But, hey, here's my hope. And Marvel, if you ever watch this, now that we're getting Doctor Doom, please give us that scene with Doctor Doom and Purple Man at some point in the MCU. I want the Doctor Doom Purple Man scene.
What's interesting about the Purple Man is that there's been a few iterations of how they've described his powers. Like, they said it's his voice, they said it's his pheromones. You have to, I believe at one point you have to make eye contact with him, but it's always been very much you can avoid being under his, I guess, his spell or whatever, if you have the strong will. And Daredevil proves that time and time again that he has the strongest will. Jessica Jones, she didn't have that until she got there. But with Daredevil, it was wild to me because that's how they started in this one, was that he's just not going to be compulsed by him. So it was interesting. I wanted to know where exactly in the history was this at in Kilgrave and Daredevil's history, because has that already been established to the two of them yet?
It
Like
was
with
in
Kilgrave, no.
issue 4, but I don't think that's the first time they meet because he hires him as a lawyer. It depicts, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's issue 4. It could be 3. I know he's in there somewhere. I don't know how much in that issue they actually deal with who is who. I know in Daredevil, like he doesn't even mess with him, right? He realizes he's blind and just leaves him. Matt lets that happen so that nobody finds out that he's Daredevil, changes, then goes and like throws down with everybody. So like that's just their initial bang bang meeting, the introduction. It's the introduction of that character as well. So that might not even have been completely fleshed out at the time. That was 64,
Yeah. That's
maybe
also
65.
that's also a way to show the growth of Kilgrave's power,
Yeah.
because as he becomes more manipulative, he believes he can manipulate anybody. That's what I'm talking about with the Doctor Doom scene. Like Doom literally strips off his mask and looks him straight in the eyes, and Kilgrave's looking at him yelling, kill yourself," and Doom just ignores him. And Kilgrave is just destroyed that he cannot break Doom's will. And that was I think that when you see this kind of Kilgrave now, where maybe he does know or maybe he doesn't know whose will he can break, it helps kind of grow him again to be even more despicable, because he obviously starts to get enjoyment off of his ability to manipulate people, and gets a little bit of swagger and arrogance about himself, about I can manipulate anybody. And so
Yeah, very serial killer-ish. Very
yes,
much their MO.
very serial killer coded, Chris, very much so.
Mhm.
So that is the last issue. In a nutshell, what are you guys' thoughts about Daredevil Yellow? Chris, you go first.
It's one of my favorite books. I am like the biggest Sale Loeb fan. For those of you again who don't know, Sale did the artwork for Heroes. Loeb wrote it. They did Challengers of the Unknown. They did Catwoman when in Rome, and just their work is so expansive and it's so good, and it takes so much of the stuff that you love is based off of the work of Tim Sale and Jeff Loeb. I mean, it would blow your mind. Daredevil Yellow is one of my favorites. My mic was muted for all that. Did you guys get all that?
We got it all.
All right, sweet. So hopefully we'll pick right back up where we were on. Daredevil Yellow is one of.
Wait, you don't.
I'm not going to redo it. I was just going
Okay,
to finish it off with something
we heard
smart and
everything.
clever.
We got it recorded. It's here.
Sweet, sweet, sweet.
Sean, what are your thoughts?
It's
All
it's,
right.
it's such a great series. Like it really is. It's such a great series. And then one of the things that none of us have talked about is, yes, Loeb and Sale are great. This is also where we get to see some of the earlier work of Hollingsworth. We start to see some of those trademarks that he's going to be known for when we get to Aja and Fraction's Hawkeye run. So we start seeing some of those colors and stuff like that that really make him stand out. So this is also a great introduction to understanding, like if you're someone who's trying to learn comics, Daredevil Yellow is a great starter place for Daredevil, for just the character in general, but it also can really help you understand how, not that Hollingsworth was unknown at that point, but this is not his seminal work, right? Hawkeye is. And so it helps you understand as a new comic book fan that some of these folks whose names you might not know, start looking at their style, start seeing their style, start seeing what are going to become their trademarks, because you don't know, right? You don't know what they're going to be. And then you've got so many people who kind of dabble and then they become big and they do covers and things like that. So I love the whole arc. I love that we get the more reflective Matt about his dad, and it's not just rainbows and sunshine. And I love my pops. He got the short end of the stick. I like the format. I like the idea, like Chris said, with the recordings for Spider-Man. I like the idea of the letter to Karen here. And I like that it brings it in. Like we wrap it up with him kind of finally closing the chapter, not necessarily closing it fully with Karen, but kind of reaching that acceptance stage of the grief and saying, hey, I love you. I will always love you. But, that's the growth. In issue 1, he feels like it's stupid. By issue 5, we're getting a glimpse into everything to this person who's not even here anymore. So,
yeah, I agree with you. I like the therapy levels, and I think that was indicative across all of them, because they're all grieving somebody in every single one of these books. In Captain America White, it's Bucky. In Spider-Man Blue, it's Gwen. And so it's therapy. It's therapy for our superheroes. It's actually, these books show that they're vulnerable, that they're human. And I think that the books that Sale and Loeb did really do a good job of making them human. And sometimes our heroes need that.
That was really well said. I couldn't say it better myself.
I try.
So, thank you
It's
for
better than
listening.
am I unmuted?
You're good. So, thank you for listening to this episode of Man Without Fear Monday. Next time, I don't know which one we're going to do because it's completely up to the listeners to tell us which arcs to check out. So, you guys have to let us know. Matt will be back. We will both be back, and it'll be amazing. Until then, please be sure to like and subscribe everywhere Nerd Initiative because we are your number one place for pop culture positivity, and we will continue to do that. So, with that being said, thank you, Shawn. Thank you, Chris. And you guys have a
Thank
great
you for
day.
having me.
Of course.